Iran's making trouble just about everywhere. And did I ever tell you about that time I went to Navy SEAL training? All that's coming up on today's Hot Zone.
This is the Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Hey folks, Chuck Holton here. Thanks for being a part of the Hot Zone. Well, Iran seized yet another tanker in the Gulf of Oman. It's not their second or even third time they've done that. And this time they say it was a tanker that was smuggling diesel fuel illegally out of Iran, because gas is really cheap in Iran, to somewhere else to sell it. But this coincided with the series of attacks on Saudi oil refineries over the weekend that chopped Saudi Arabia's oil output by about, or gasoline output by about 50%. And that translates to about 5% of the entire world market. Now, if it wasn't for George Bush opening up the fracking market in the United States, if it wasn't for Donald Trump encouraging the fracking market in the United States, that would have had a much bigger impact on us here in the United States. But instead, we're doing pretty good, and we've seen about a 20% rise in the price of fuel, even though that's probably more emotional than actual, because the supply of fuel is being kept pretty constant by reserves that are being released, both by the United States and Saudi Arabia and other countries. So the bottom line is that Iran is doing everything it can, just begging us to come over there and squash them like a bug. And that just isn't boding well for financial markets, for other, business markets around the world, and for the U.S. economy because of the hit on oil. What that means is that the United States and other countries are starting to think about perhaps we ought to prepare for war. If it happens to go any further than this, things might start to get real hot in the Gulf. And so the United States Navy SEALs and Israeli Special Forces recently, over the weekend, conducted a drill, let's say. It might have been more of a show of force, perhaps, about where they went and took over did a hijacking exercise out in the Mediterranean, just to show the Iranians what we're capable of, perhaps, and to give our Navy SEALs and Israeli Special Forces some extra practice at taking over a hijacked ship. Take a look at this footage. It's absolutely fabulous. Oh, some of the most unbelievable footage. I mean, it looks like a recruiting video. The Navy SEALs are parachuting into the sea and then jumping on boats and racing up to the ship, and then taking over the ship with guns drawn. I mean, it's like something out of a movie. And that's why I wanted to show it to you, because it's really, really cool. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say about that. Bottom line is, the United States, if we have to go to war with Iran, it's not going to be a long war. We will crush them and be done with it. Hopefully, we won't move in there and set up bases and decide to stay for 18 years. That'd be bad. But in the greater scheme of things, the likelihood of that happening is probably pretty low, because neither Iran nor the United States really wants a war. But they're trying to rattle the sabers, because we're really hurting them with the sanctions and all that, and they want to try to get some concessions. They're going the North Korea route to get some concessions out of us. Okay, here's something else that's cool. Just minutes after Hezbollah's missile attack in Israel last week, the Israelis scrambled a medevac helicopter in and then loaded what looked like a wounded soldier onto their helicopter. You probably didn't hear about this in the mainstream media. Loaded this wounded soldier onto the helicopter and flew him off, got him off at the hospital in front of TV cameras, and hustled him inside. And as it turns out later, it was all a big sham. They were actually pretending that Hezbollah had hit something and hurt people so that they would stop shooting more missiles. So they would their idea was this psychological exercise would stop Hezbollah from shooting any more missiles because they would think they had been successful. And, well, Hezbollah didn't shoot any more missiles. Israel did, though, and whacked Hezbollah pretty bad. So it's pretty interesting to watch this footage of an Israeli soldier being loaded aboard a helicopter and then flown off to the hospital, when in reality, it was all a big farce. Hezbollah says that their bombing was in retaliation for a bombing from the Israelis. The Israelis say that their bombing, which happened outside of Damascus, Syria, was to thwart a potential drone strike inside Israel. Now, we're seeing more and more of these drone strikes. We've done a whole episode on it recently. And it's very possible that some or all of the bombs that went off at the Saudi oil refinery happened to be from drones or cruise missiles or whatever from Israel. From Iran. So, man, it's late. I'm tired. One more thing that I just wanted to get to. Did I ever tell you about the time that I went to Navy SEAL training in Virginia? Now, it wasn't actual Navy SEAL training, but here's what happened. CBN News contacted me just after Osama bin Laden was killed by Navy SEALs, of course, and said, hey, we got this great idea. We want to do a story about how the Navy SEALs do their training. So we found a place in Virginia where you can go for a week and get an actual Navy SEAL training from Navy SEALs. And it's designed to, I guess, prepare guys that actually want to do the real thing. And basically, it's a week of getting abused physically. That's basically what it turns into. And I said, wait, hey, hang on. There's a couple problems with this idea. Number one, I'm more than 40 years old. I don't want to do that. I've been there and done that, man. I've punched my ticket. I've proven everything I need to prove in this life. And I don't need to go try to prove anything to these Navy SEALs. Number two, I was an Army Ranger. Do you know how Navy SEALs and Army Rangers get along? We don't. So whatever you do, please don't tell those people that I was an Army Ranger. And they said, well, actually, yeah. So it was too late. They'd already said something about it. And so I found myself getting smoked for a week in on the coast of Virginia by a bunch of former Navy SEALs. And actually, they were pretty nice guys. And they were very respectful of my former military service. So I have to give them that. But it was a whole lot of no fun. Watch this.
The U.S. Navy SEALs are legendary for their toughness and tenacity. These highly trained warriors spend years honing their skills on land, sea, and air. As a former Army Ranger, I wanted to find out if SEAL training was as tough as everyone says. But I'm not about to join the Navy to find out. This is the Extreme SEAL experience. Situated just outside Norfolk, Virginia, the week-long course gives regular folks a taste of the real thing.
I have to stencil my t-shirt with my last name, front and back, so I can remember who I am.
I wanted to see if I still had what it takes, so I signed up. 15 others showed up the first day, regular guys from all different backgrounds. A retired Navy SEAL, Senior Chief Don Shipley, runs the program with the help of other former SEALs.
All the instructors are SEALs, and we've all been through Hell Week. We've all done the deployments. We know what it takes to get through that training.
Good morning, ladies.
The Extreme SEAL experience starts with a surprise wake-up call at 02:30.
2 o'clock in the morning. Time to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
I knew a long, hard day was on the horizon.
Back in Ranger School, man.
The week-long course starts with over 24 hours of grueling physical and mental challenges.
All right, it's time to go get on the bus.
The first day of training that we run down here is called Hell Night. It's a simulation of Hell Week and BUDS. Kinda.
BUDS stands for Basic Underwater Demolition School, the 6-month training all Navy SEALs must complete. The most intense part? Hell Week. 132 hours that push men past their breaking points, much of it done in the cold ocean water. Most who enter the school drop out during this phase.
If I was running actual SEAL training down here, I'd have backing ambulances in here every day.
The next 24 hours were non-stop action, starting with a 10-mile paddle. 8 men crammed into each boat, and navigating the river in complete darkness was more difficult than I anticipated. It's a pretty good teamwork exercise, kind of getting to know each other and trying to figure out, how we're going to work together and make this happen. We ended up in front of a stagnant, algae-infested pond. Then the fun began.
2 foot forward, move.
Nothing like pond scum for breakfast. But there's a method to the madness. Special operators can't afford to be squeamish. I get the feeling it's going to get a lot harder from here. Next came lots and lots and lots of physical training, or PT. It's hundreds of push-ups, sit-ups, flutter kicks, and whatever else the instructors can dream up. The art of camouflage is vitally important, as SEALs must regularly operate behind enemy lines. How much are they paying me for this?
Right. 1, 2, 3. 1.
And before every new activity, more physical training. All these guys behind me have come from all over the United States and Canada and paid between $1,500 and $3,000 for a couple weeks of training to find out one thing, and that's if they have what it takes to be a Navy SEAL.
Back straight, heads up.
Down.
If the push-ups weren't perfect, we had to start over.
Down. Go, go, go.
Log PT is designed to force the men to work as a team under very arduous conditions. The course isn't just about running and push-ups. We also learn some tactical skills like hand-to-hand combat and how to transition silently from water to land. In actual SEAL training, exercises like this are designed to teach these guys what they're capable of and push them beyond their physical limits. And that's why only about 20% of them actually make it to the end of SEAL training.
All right, so we'll hit these 2 danger crossings.
The highlight of Hell Night is a simulated mission. It's the payoff for all the hard work.
Go, guys, lift her up.
The guys must use all the skills learned throughout the day to complete the operation. These weekend warriors get painted up, paddle downriver under the cover of darkness, hike through dense forest. A small taste of what life must be like as a real Navy SEAL. For these guys, this is better than spending vacation sitting on the beach. The reward is knowing they challenged themselves and made it through, going back home with a little more self-confidence, some incredible memories, and a greater respect for the sacrifices made by our nation's special operators. Chuck Holton, CBN News, Chesapeake, Virginia.
So many of you have been contacting me and asking what happened because my wife put something on Facebook that said I almost died a couple days ago and that she was grateful that I didn't. Me too. And so just so you know, I didn't, it was close. We had a big tour. I'm back in Panama and my manager that manages the tour company that we own here is on vacation. And so we had this big tour, 22 kids from the United States that wanted to go out to the waterfalls. So I drove one of the trucks out there, and it turned out because of we're in the middle of the rainy season, that there's this big hill. It's like a third of a mile long, and it's really, really steep. And on the way down that hill, the truck just started sliding with 12 people total in it, including me. So 12 souls aboard, and we're skiing down this mountain in a big Toyota pickup truck in the mud. And, you get sideways on something like that, it's all over. You're just going to start rolling. A bunch of people are going to get hurt. I was shouting and praying and screaming and crying and pleading with God to save us and trying everything I could to keep the nose kind of pointed downhill. And so thank heaven we made it in one piece. And then we got to the waterfall. And I was testing out the waters, which were at flood stage because, it's rainy season, like I said. And slipped, fell into the water, and got sucked downstream by the current and shot right over a 15 or 20-foot waterfall into a big whirlpool, which proceeded to hold me underwater until I figured out that, oh, yeah, you're not supposed to try to swim out of the whirlpool. You're supposed to swim down and then out. And so I almost died like 3 times that day. But we don't sweat the close ones around here because we're Holtons, and that's what we do here on the Hot Zone. Thanks for all your prayers and support. I mean that with all my heart. I know a lot of you pray for me, and as you know, I really need it. So we appreciate all of you. Thanks for being a part of the Hot Zone. We'll see you tomorrow.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.